Bex Show. Happy Tributes Day, everyone. You're with me, your favorite host, Bexy Ophelia, in today's very special Tributes Day episode of the Bex Show. Every year, we have one of the victors or any one of them that has taken part in the Hunger Games. But today, it is our very special year because we have our very own Mockingjay with us today. Welcome, Mockingjay. Thank you for taking your time to attend this interview.
You can just call me Katniss.
Oh, great. So Katniss, tell me, how was it growing up in District 12?
Well, I have to say that growing up in District 12 was very homely. You grew up in a very small community, so you knew everyone, and everyone knew you.
But was it difficult, or like what the struggles or the disadvantages that you had?
It was definitely a struggle, watching our parents go to the coal mines every day, and knowing that you would not be allowed to join them until you turn 17. But me and Gail, we did our best to provide for our own family.
So growing up in District 12, did it in any way influence you in like surviving and eventually winning the Hunger Games?
I'm sure you've noticed that the other districts start training for their own district's activities much earlier than we.
Yes.
So in that effect, I would not have been prepared had I not taken up hunting on my own initiative.
Great. So, at which point of your entire journey, from your first Hunger Games or the 75th Hunger Games, did you realize that you have become the symbol of rebellion of this country?
That's a difficult question. It took quite a while, I should think. I was not actually aware of it, not until we've been rescued from the 75th Hunger Games and taken to District 13, where they finally told me what was going on.
So as we all know, that Mockingjay, our Mockingjay Katniss, you are the symbol of our rebellion until today. You being in the games made that happen. You changed the entire perspective of the nation. What if you were not in the game? Would you have still changed the perspective of the nation, or you would have just ran away with Gale in the forest? In that case, you will know that our nation and the Hunger Games would still be going on.
If I may speak honestly, I think that nothing would have changed. I would probably have left with Gail to protect our families from the Hunger Games and everything that came with it.
Okay. So, you mentioned Gale twice today now. So, do you think Gale, if he was in the Hunger Games, would have won, or how his attributes will change your perspective in the nation, in the rebellion and everything?
I think, to answer the first part of your question, I would like to believe that Gail would have won the Hunger Games. He might not have taken the exact same steps that I did, but I do put my faith in him being able to fend for himself and possibly pull off a win during the Hunger Games. As to how he, can you repeat the second question?
How the influence of Gale changed the perspective of you standing up as a rebellion? Without Gale, would you have still been the symbol of rebellion, or otherwise, vice versa?
For me, I think that this was after many nights of staying just wondering. I do believe that Gale did actually play an instrumental part in how the rebellion came to be. As you all would have known that me and Gale spent many years together, providing for our family, backing each other up. So we did have talks about the capital and the Hunger Games, and throughout all these discussions, Gale was always against them. He was very passionate about it, and may I say more passionate than I ever was. And that influenced the way I thought. Okay. It may have led to how I incited the rebellion, unconsciously or consciously.
Okay, great. So, as you said, consciously or unconsciously, Gale did influence you in the perspective of the nation and your uptaking the rebellions.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you could trade one abilities or any, like, we can say superpowers that the tributes possess, whose attributes would you have chosen?
I would have definitely chosen Rose.
Why?
I think she would have survived had it not been for my plan. She definitely had a good shot of winning the games at the time. Just so happened that the fortune was not in her favor. But I admire her for being able to stand up to that kind of crowd, with her just being able to climb trees, know how to forage. And these are all good survival skills.
So speaking of Rue, were you allies with Rue because of her abilities, or that she reminded you of your sister?
It was definitely because of her.
Because of the age factor, or the way that they are? So you think Prim and Rue has any similar attributes, would you say?
They do have similar attributes, and age is definitely a factor. Also, it was the way they carried themselves. Rue and Prim both had this special kind of gentleness about them that could really bring out the good in people, and I really admire both of them for that.
Okay, great. So we also want to talk about some of your fallen tributes, or the tributes that we have now. So what do you admire or aspire most from Finnick Oder? As he was a part of the rebellion as well, from the 75th Hunger Games. So as a senior tribute, as a fellow tribute, what do you admire the most about him?
I'm not sure how many of you actually know this, but Finnick Oder, after we were rescued and taken to District 13, we spent a lot of time together. And in doing so, we shared a lot of things. And one of the things that I admire most about him at that point in time was his strength. You all might know Annie from District 4. She was his sweetheart, and it took him a very long time to find her again. And they did get married in the end, shortly before he was taken. But it was his strength and his courage to come back to Annie that kept him going through all those days, and that is what I admire most.
Okay. So do you think in some attributes Finnick Oder and Gale has any similarities? With the way they sacrifice themselves for their loved ones, or the way that they bring themselves to rebellions, or the way that they stand up against the capital. So do you see any similar attributes between them?
I would think that Finnick was definitely more mature than Gale. Gale was passionate, but he had a lot of he had fire burning in him that was pure vengeance. What Gale did, most of Gale's actions were not out of love, but out of vengeance. Whereas I find that Finnick, he did it because he wanted to protect those he loved.
So speaking of life after the rebellion, life after the games, have you visited other districts now?
Yeah, me and Peter have gone visiting to other districts since the new train started.
Yes.
So Peter suggested that we should actually drop by District 4 and visit anyone's.
So how's life in District 12 now? Speaking of districts, coming back to your own districts, how's life in District 12 now? Comparing to before?
It's a lot it's very different from before. I'm sure you all know that one
Yes,
of
obvious.
the biggest differences is that we no longer have peacekeepers around. But other than that, it is still pretty much the same. We're still a rather small community, know one another. But I believe that this also brings us closer to one another after everything we've been through. Rebuilding has been hard. We needed a lot of materials and a lot of manpower to just get certain buildings up and running so that the community can continue to function as a whole. But overall, it's been really good. Peter started his own bakery.
Great, so that's awesome. You should have brought some bread for me then.
I'll be sure to do that next time.
Looks like that's all the time we have for today, Katniss, but thank you so much for joining us for today. It's been a pleasure hearing from your perspective. We would love to have you again from the show. Thank you so much. Let's give up for Katniss and stay tuned for a very special musical performance by our very own talents from the capital.